Right. Let's see if I remember how to do this. And we're back, and you are listening to Villaincast, BJJ Anti-Heroes, with myself, Chris the Villain Paynes, and welcome to Return of the Reap. But first, a quick thank you to our members at In Theory BJJ, Concept Driven Jiu-Jitsu, for fight commentary, technique and concept videos, private coaching, monthly webinars and Q&A sessions. Please visit www.patreon.com/InTheoryBJJ. It's been a few weeks. I'm so sorry. It's been a hell of a couple of weeks. Naki hasn't even been able to return yet. He'll be joining regular programming of Reap the Week next week. But it has been a very, very busy couple of weeks here at Villain HQ. So memory is not great. I was choked out on this tour, so you'll have to forgive me. But from what I remember, so I went to Georgia, to Tbilisi, around mid-May. Amazing trip. I highly recommend, if you ever get the chance, go to the other Georgia. Not Georgia, USA, Georgia. Beautiful country, friendly, one of the friendliest places I've ever been on earth. And they need jiu-jitsu help. Jiu-jitsu hasn't really got a big foothold over there. There's a few gyms in the capital, but they need some love. They need some jiu-jitsu love, and it was a lot of fun being able to go over there and be able to show this fundamental style that I seem to be crafting. From then, I think I had about a week at home, maybe a bit longer. It felt like nothing. So I might have recorded an episode of Reap the Week at that point. Then I went to Amsterdam for the Whoopass camp. For one day of the Whoopass camp. Raul Howdu's gym, Tribe Grappling. He is my, I guess, lineage brother. Lineage is such a weird thing, but here's my lineage brother. We've both got our black belts from Preet. He did get up to brown belt, though, under 10th Planet originally, but he is currently under Preet for his black belt. It was a fun camp. It was just myself and Preet teaching on that day. So I did a fun 2-hour seminar. I had a Friday in Amsterdam, then went wandering around with my camera for a bit of the day, and then flew back on this Saturday morning. I had 90 minutes at home. 90 minutes before I had to head back to the airport and fly to America. So that'll be the kind of crux of this conversation. I say conversation, I'm supposed to be talking at you. First off, it was weird. It's getting increasingly weird that I am now meeting people who listen to the podcast. Like, I've met people who watch the video, the How to Defend Everything video, and that's weird enough. But now when people comment on the podcast, I'm like, oh, you listen to our darkest thoughts. Oh, and I love that Naki gets mentioned as well, and the guests get mentioned, and people ask about Naki, and especially when people, I don't get to see people's faces, and people barely even talk to me, but they say like, oh, I get to listen to you every Thursday, and it's like, they're so used to me, but I'm still meeting people. And then they ask about Naki, and I'm like, this is a weird form of infamy. I don't want to say fame. That feel weird. It's very niche. But it's happening more and more. There was quite a few people at the camp, and there was someone in Amsterdam. So hello to you for listening to this and saying hello to me. Sorry if I seem freaked out when you say hello. I went to the USA. I went with a friend of mine, PJ Lucy. He is a black belt from Ireland under John Kavanagh of SBG, of MMA Conor McGregor fame. It was PJ's first trip to the USA, and it was quite interesting being able to take out. It was quite fun taking a friend, a fellow black belt, out to the USA for the first time. It was the first time in his 43 years of life he'd been to the USA. So we went to the Globetrotters camp in Maine. I highly recommend. This is going to be a terrible advert for this camp. I highly recommend going. I've been doing Globetrotters camps now since they started 11 years ago. I've done 1 or 2, 3 camps every year. And they're always a blast. I've always loved going to camps. That's why I keep doing it. But Maine is a different vibe altogether. You're at a summer camp kind of place for boys. It's not really a thing that we have in Europe, or especially in the UK. But it's a thing that, I've seen that American culture have those summer camps. And this one's been going. There's posters on the wall that are like put up in like the late 70s. So it's been going for a long time. And it's a summer camp for boys, but I think we're the first booking of the year. So 200 BJJ Globetrotters descend upon this poor camp in Maine. It must be about half an hour from anywhere, civilization-wise. It's in the middle of nowhere. We stay in log cabins. It's on a lake. You have kayaks and canoes, and you get 3 meals a day, and just 12 hours of jiu-jitsu a day for like 6 days. It's what more could you want? Like if you've done enough jiu-jitsu, just go on a kayak or go swim in the lake, or go sleep in a log cabin. It's especially when you're around 200 people for that entire time who do jiu-jitsu and enjoy jiu-jitsu that much that they come to a camp. Like it's a great vibe. And compared to like the European ones where I still enjoy those. I still love Heidelberg, where you descend upon a town and you take over the town. This is very, very... You're trapped. You're trapped in the same place, and you're all doing jiu-jitsu and bonfires and s'mores. I highly recommend it. There's a reason why that camp sells out so quickly, and they've been doing it for 10 years now. But it was fun being able to take PJ to this experience. He was also coaching at the camp alongside myself and all those other Globetrotters coaches. So we flew into New York. I took him straight to Bryant Park, which is about 1 block off Times Square. So this poor man, his first experience of the USA was Times Square. That was entirely intentional. I wanted to see if I could make a man's brain melt. I think I got close. And explored. I think we walked about 10 miles around New York at that point in about 5 hours. So I really dragged him around Manhattan. I went to Connecticut. We joined up with Charles Harriott and Brad Wolfson over in New Haven. And we drove up with them on the Monday morning. Spent 4 days at the camp. Had the best time. Went on the lake. Did classes. Those classes I did record one of my classes personally. And so I'm going to be putting that class on In Theory. There's quite a few classes going up on there. I recorded a gi class in Virginia, my Globetrotters class, some behind the scenes stuff at Fanatics, which I'm going to talk about. There's still classes going up from Georgia, and a couple of classes from Norway as well. So there's so much going on to In Theory. There's a webinar coming up this weekend. It's really, there's so much stuff going on there. I'm so happy with that's going. But anyway, so we did this camp. It was, again, melted PJ's mind, this experience. Went and did the camp, and then we had to leave slightly early. So on the Friday lunch, we managed to hitch a ride back down to Boston. Introduced PJ to Salem, which we were talking on this trip, and it's one of those... This is one of the if you ever go take anything from this podcast... Take this, is jiu-jitsu is a great sport. I love it to bits, as we all do. You listen to this podcast. But it is a better vehicle for seeing the world. Please. Jiu-jitsu, when you can harness this ability of jiu-jitsu, it can take you everywhere and open you up to experiences that you never thought possible. A lot of the places that I've been to, I love going to the places, and they're always places I want to maybe see. But it's places that I'd never envisage that I go to that I'm going, wow, jiu-jitsu is Maine. Why would I ever go to Maine? Why would anyone ever go to Maine? Why would anyone go stay at a boys' summer camp in Maine? But there I was, and now I'm talking about Salem, famous for the witch trials, and a place that people will think, oh yeah, maybe if I happen to be, it'd be cool to go to Salem one day. And people never do, especially Europeans. I mean, even most Americans. Why would you ever go to Salem? It's just, it's unless you got a real kink for Halloween stuff, would you ever go to Salem? But here we were walking around, and it's so weird being able to do that. You have these little existential moments like, how did I get here? Reason we were in Salem, the following day, so this is the Saturday, I did a new recording at Fanatics. Last year I did 2, and this was about 6 months after my first, so there was quite a lot of content quite close together, and especially after the first Fanatics release, I was so mind-blown that I managed to get that opportunity to actually go and record at Fanatics. I put everything into it. I wrote so much of my head into that initial release that doing the second and third with Charles and on my own, it took some brain beating to get that kind of content out of me after that. I thought if I've only got one shot on that first one, I better do everything. It went so well, I did 2 and 3. So I'm kind of glad I had the year off, and so I went and did my 4th one, and PJ was very kind to be an Uki. I did a bit of behind the scenes of what the Fanatics kind of location is like, and a bit of talking about the DVD itself for when it comes out. And it's going to be defensive to offensive cycles. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as well, where and why I kind of came to those conclusions. So the idea being that, I've talked a lot about defense and how to harness it into offense, how that translates, and you can interpret it to open up more avenues for attack on people that aren't just the usual kind of control, setup, submission, but what does that entail? And it just flowed. I mean, they usually ask for like an hour and a half to 2 hours of content. I have heard some horror stories whilst I was there of people who came in and just literally did like half an hour and left. Like, that's all they could do. And it was weird hearing it from PJ as well. And it's so my brother he doesn't do jiu-jitsu, but he's trying to get into the YouTube space as well. He has his own professional teaching career. And he's trying to get into the YouTube space, and you may be able to deliver, like, in jiu-jitsu, for example, be able to deliver in seminar form, in class form. They're very different beasts themselves, but being able to deliver as an instructional, where you don't have the instant feedback from the crowd, you're not repeating yourself because it's a video, people can rewind. You're not necessarily doing multi-angle. You're delivering to a camera. There's no one else in the room. It's not a gym. You actually have a videographer who's sitting there staring at you, and they press record, you deliver, and then they press start, and then you go on to the next thing. And what you'd normally think you could, you do an hour, 2 hour seminar, and there's breaks, there's repeats, there's questions, there's feeding off the crowd, there's drill time, and so that takes up a lot of time. But delivering an instructional, to do a 2 hour instructional, you're probably doing about 6-7 hours of content that you'd normally do in seminars, and you're just banging it out to a box. And I'm so happy for the opportunities that I've had to create video content and do the podcast, that it felt more natural this time. So I'm so stoked for this Fanatics release. It should be out probably end of June, mid-July. Please check it out. I'm so happy. It flowed so well. I think PJ noted that in 2.25 hours of recording, of solid recording that we've put down, I think I did 2 takes, and that was it. I think one of those was because PJ's phone went off, but to only break twice and just in 2.25 hours, I was like, this is solid. The flow was so good. So please check that out when it comes. I'm so stoked for it. But the kind of logic behind it is, so it was nice to be able to do the camp first, because it then just made sure I finalized a few of the ways I want to see the world, and I create this content for In Theory and YouTube and Fanatics, and it's stuff that I find interesting mostly, or has been. and what I think people would like and what I think people would need. But then being able to ask questions, like for Reap the Week, when I put it on Instagram, people send me in the most random questions, or on the Discord, or YouTube comments, or just now visiting people and going to camps and just spending time sitting down with people and going, right, like, what do you want to know? Like, and the questions that I get are things that I would never think of personally. And there's such a frustration in jiu-jitsu with people, is getting the information that they do from their coaches and drills, and understanding guard to an extent, the guards in a technical way, submissions in a technical way, escapes and control and all those things. But the thread that ties everything together is missing, and that frustrates people. I had a brilliant sit down with some people at the camp, and I did a Q&A session in the theatre, and just the questions that are coming up, I was like, yeah, I'd never have thought of that. Like, it's such a integral part of how I see jiu-jitsu, but the thread that kind of joins everything of, right, well, why are we doing, like, what am I trying to do? I know I'm trying to win, but especially when you're like, high blue, purple belt level, like, what do you do to get better? And I can see the frustration on people, and it's a frustration that I have an empathy for, because I'm sure I felt it as well. And being able to overcome that is like, well, how do we overcome that frustration? What do you need? And that kind of then informed how I want to look at the Fanatics release of, we want to win, we want to get better, we don't want to lose, we want to have good control and good technical ability. But what are those fundamentals? What would you describe as a fundamental? It's not guard, it's not side control, it's not a rear naked choke, it's not an armbar. It's how to use your body in space, how to impose your will upon another human being, and how to make sure they can't impose their will upon you. And how, through the art of grappling, do you achieve that with your body, gain mastery of your own body to be able to enact your will, and understand all those fundamentals of jiu-jitsu which create guard, which create control, which create techniques and sweeps and all those things. And it really galvanized my thoughts into, right, this is what I need to make sure I get out into the world. This has been my obsession for years, to understand everything deeper. And now I want to make sure that, because a lot of my students don't have that same issue, because I batter it into their head day in, day out. But it's not everywhere. And if I can help, I should do a series on it. I should do a Fanatics release on it. Maybe I did. Maybe it's called Defensive to Offensive Cycles, if that's the name they go with. Messaging. If you have those same frustrations, if you find that you have those disparate parts of your jiu-jitsu, and you're just like, well, how does this tie together? What am I looking for now? What do I do to get better at this? I can't take any more techniques on. I have all my techniques. So what am I missing? If you feel that same frustration, just drop a message in. I'd love to hear those, if I'm on something here, and what we can do to help. Maybe that's a new webinar. Maybe that's a new In Theory webinar. I've got one this weekend on control, but I'm sure I could steer it that way. Where are you frustrated? Is that one of your frustrations, or are you frustrated in a different way? I'd love to know. I'd love to know, because I'm here in the business of trying to get people better at this game. Saying that, and this is not a whinge in the slightest. I'm starting to realize as well, like, I enjoy being out on the road. Oh my god, like, the amount of people who think, like, I'd love to do jiu-jitsu as a job. Yeah, it's fun. Absolutely. Seminars are fun. At the same time, oh my god, I got out of shape doing seminars. I never understood this as a person who used to book black belts. And maybe I was too naive at the time. I didn't have the experience levels, and now I've got more empathy when someone is booked. Is they will say like, how long do you want? Average is what, 2 to 3 hours of seminar. And I'd always get maybe like a bit like, the fuck, if at the end of a seminar, like a 2 hour, 3 hour seminar, they didn't roll. I'm like, why aren't you rolling? Like, you're a black belt. We don't get a chance to roll the black belt. Let's roll the black belt. But after doing them, after delivering for like 2, 3, 4 hours sometimes, like, you're telling a story for 4 hours, and like joining up all these ideas in your head and creating a narrative and flowing that narrative and trying to get the information across. And we don't go in with a script or anything, barely any, cards and notes and stuff. But it's like, okay, how do you have all these ideas in your head, and you have like almost like a comedy set where kind of the next point you want to make, and it's finding your way there. And you have to have those cues that kind of lead you to the next point instead of just being a random thing. And doing that for 4 hours, like, yeah, it's interesting to do. And so at the end of it, when people want to roll, and they want to roll hard because you got a target on your back, yeah, sometimes I always, if people want to roll, I want to roll. But at the same time, the amount of people who don't want to roll, the amount of seminars I do, and it's like 3 hours in, and they're blown as well, and people are like, we're good, we want to go home. And that's probably more common, is it'll be a 3 hour seminar and people just want to leave afterwards. But even the ones where you do want to roll, like, the times where I'd say, like, why isn't this black belt rolling? Okay, say if they do we pay for a 3 hour seminar, they do 2 hours of teaching, then 1 hour rolling. How many people are going to roll within an hour? For the rest of the room, they're just sitting around watching. Like, they get maybe 5 minutes of the black belt, but there's like 20 people on the mats. Not all of them are going to get a roll. So I can see why that would be a bit shitty. Like, if you pay for that money and you're just sitting there watching and not maybe getting the chance, maybe not. And so, like, if I have 3 hours, I'm booking a seminar, I'm not going to book 2 and then 1 hour rolling, where a large portion of the room aren't going to get a chance to spend time with this person. I'd rather get 3 hours of content out of them. It's a seminar. At the same time, then, if you're on the receiving end of that seminar and you're doing a little tour, I might not go all week. And part of the tour I did with Charles back in March, we were out for 18 days. I rolled 1 day, so I spent 18 days on the road, not doing any rolling, not doing any physical training, because we were just in hotel to hotel and on the road and sleeping in like gyms and on cars and stuff, airport floors. It's. I mean, I'm not, again, there's not a whinge at all. I this is fantastic that I get to do this, but it's so weird to think that I had this naive idea that being a traveling jiu-jitsu coach would be like, you get fit doing it. No, you don't. Like, if anything, it's the opposite. Like, being a traveling jiu-jitsu coach, you don't get fit. So if you book a black belt, obviously you are paying them, like, make them dance to how you want to dance. But yeah, maybe they need a bit of love too. Like, maybe they're tired. Maybe they need a little bit of a roll, but don't try and kill them. Maybe they need a little bit of exercise, putting on that hamster wheel at the end of it. Try and give love out for the black belts out there who are trying their best. But then again, like, maybe I'm shooting my own feet off saying this. Christian Graugart, who runs the Globetrotters camps, like, doing these kind of troll conversation sessions, and because I think he sees me as a bit of a troll, he normally invites me in on them. But one of the questions he usually likes throwing out there is, are seminars worth it? Or are they just photo opportunities? I would say there have not been many seminars that I've booked with leading names that I've gone, that was worth it. Not for the money, especially. They're fantastic athletes. Can't knock them for that. But the information I've taken from it, not worth it. And that's maybe why I think that especially I've tried my best to make sure that I give as much information as I can, as clearly as I can when I teach a seminar, because I know what it feels like to pay for one of these, be excited for one of these, want answers from one of these, and walk away feeling like you took nothing from this experience and it's just cost you. Sometimes quite handsomely as well, $50 to $100 isn't, it's enough to scoff at sometimes. And you got a photo at the end, maybe. You'll listen to this person speak for 2 hours about their game, and maybe take a detail or two that could help. If it ends up in drilling, fantastic. So yeah, I think by and large, I don't think they are worth it. Depending on how good the seminar is. Some seminars, like they've been delivered so well that I've taken everything that's just stuck in my head. At the same time, I've had those which are god awful. So yeah, maybe this is me asking questions out to you guys for once. What do you think? Seminars, are they worth it? If you've been to my seminar, was it worth it? I had this conversation with Charles. Is that we don't get employee feedback, as it were. Like, I want to get better. And so if you've listened to this and you've actually come out to one of my seminars in the past, give me some feedback. Send it anonymously. Don't send it anonymously. I don't care. Like, be brutal. Like, can I get better? Is it worth it? I want to fix that experience, because it really jaded me on even booking seminars at my gym. Like, and it jaded my students in a way. Like, the amount of times I say, oh, should we get this person? Like, no. I'm like, okay, cool. That's fine. Like, maybe they'll help, maybe not. I understand. I feel your pain. Have you had a bad experience with seminars? Who's been the worst? Who's been the best? Let's keep it positive and negative. Like, if you've listened to this, like, send them in on Instagram, or I don't know, you comment on the YouTube video for this. Have you had any which have been great, good, bad, or nightmare stories? I want to hear some nightmare stories. Send them some nightmare stories. I want to be able to talk about this next week. That'd be fun. I won't name names. Like, I'm doing my best because of this platform to not personally attack anyone on a podcast where they can't respond. So I do my best to not name names or try and out people as best I can. Sometimes it's unavoidable. And I just forget. But I'm doing my best. Hold me to account. This is going to be a short episode. I don't want to just speak at you for too long. I just want to check in and say, I hope you're good. I hope you're safe. I hope you're enjoying your training. I hope you're enjoying jiu-jitsu. I hope you're not feeling too frustrated. If you are, let's chat. Let's have a... I found a way, actually, that I can actually advertise a live stream for this and a chat. So we could actually put this up now. It's actually, I think the software has changed, that we can actually put this up and people can chat to us mid live stream and we can talk about things. Oh my God, that's going to be so much fun next week. I'm here for the next 6 weeks before I disappear off to Europe again. So this is going to be consistent. I'm so glad to be back on the podcast. I've missed doing this. I've missed this so much. I've been sitting there in those cabins and it's like, man, I wish I had a good laptop and an internet connection so I can talk about this. As well, like, so I made a video. I don't know how many people watched it. Tangents, I'm sorry. About photography. So I've really got into it. It's quite meditative. Especially bouncing around the world now as a globetrotter and be able to go to such fantastic places and meet fantastic people. You wouldn't know this, but right behind my screen that I'm looking at right now, I have photos of all the places I've ever been printed off and the people I've met. And it keeps me grounded on why I keep doing this. So there's a high chance that you might be listening to this and I'm looking at your face. Wouldn't that be weird? But it's all done on mobile phone. And I've now got into the habit of traveling with a camera and wanting to understand how that camera works so I can preserve these ideas. So I made a bit of a video on how to take gym photos. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm getting there. Pardon me. So I made a video on the YouTube channel talking about how to actually take video in the gym. How to make, not video, how to take photos of people rolling. What kind of camera you'd need, lenses, settings, why a phone sucks, what kind of angle actually makes the whole thing look better. Check it out. Like, it's, stuff that I wanted 7 or 8 years ago, when I wanted to just get some better photos of people doing jiu-jitsu, not just the atypical against the wall kind of end of the class photo. But how do you actually take people's photos doing jiu-jitsu, not in like competition, like maybe competition, but just in your own gym? Is there a way? Is there something to know about this? So I made a video on it, and it seems to have gone down well. So check that out. I mean, I'm actually really excited for it. Like, I'd say that alongside climbing and music, I think photography is like becoming quite, and gaming obviously, becoming quite important. And it's being able to preserve those. I think it was that existential thing that my mom said, and she's like, travel, coming into her 60s now. She was commenting that all those photos she takes on her phone, she dies and they go with her, kind of thing. That if people don't have access codes to her phone, they're all saved on there, or the phone breaks or whatever, those photos are lost. And it's not like when a lot of us were younger, and you had photo albums printed off, and they don't really exist as much anymore. And if you do have photo albums, like we take most of our photos on phones, and they'll never be the same quality as a good camera. And so she had this kind of moment that, she wanted to have those kind of memories visible, even when she's gone, that people can look back at her life, like for a time in our humanity that we have access to all those things, but they're all going to the cloud. If the cloud fails for whatever reason, it's all lost. And the quality is probably not even great to begin with. So I've kind of like the idea that if I get these opportunities to now see the world, I better be taking good photos whilst I do it. So if you have any actually tips for taking good kind of travel photos and stuff like that, I just love talking about that stuff. It interests me, and being able to kind of document the life of a traveling jiu-jitsu coach, I like that idea. If you want to check out that video, it's on my YouTube channel, how to actually take some better pictures of jiu-jitsu. For someone who is a very, very amateur at best photographer. But thank you for coming back in for Return of the Reap. Normal service will resume next week. I can't wait for Tanaka to come back on this. He was out doing camps and seminars too. He's on the road. You have no idea how proud that makes me. But thank you for tuning in. Thank you for coming back to Reap the Week, and I'll see you next week.